Hello, economics class. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there today, but we're going to go ahead and get started with lesson 3. So this is going to be your bell work for today. If you want to go ahead and pause the video, you can go ahead and answer it, and then we'll go over the answers. All right, so number 1, the law of supply says that if the price of an item goes up, the quantity supplied will go. The answer would be up, because remember, the law of supply says that price and quantity are parallel. They have the same direction. As the price of an item goes down, then the quantity supplied will go down. And why is that? Well, because businesses want to make money. So that's number 3. What's the goal of a business? It's to maximize profit. So the law of supply says that if the price is high, suppliers will come into the market because they want that high price. Okay, go ahead and draw a basic supply curve and then give one example of something other than price that will shift supply. So this would be one of your supply shifters. So you can look at your supply shifter sheet to do that. Okay, so today we're going to jump into lesson 3. You should be looking for the piece of paper that says lesson 3, prices and market equilibrium. And at the top corner, it should have an L3. So as you can, I'm sure, very well imagine, we are going to place the demand and the supply lines together, of course. And the demand line is going to be a downward sloping line, the supply line upward sloping. And you have in the middle this place where they meet, and that's what we call market equilibrium. Market equilibrium is essentially the perfect price. It's the price that demanders want to pay or will pay, and the price that suppliers will supply at. It's where they meet. So this is kind of what we're going to be looking at today. So remember the first day, remember the winter storm? Remember how we said that we needed to ration all the items we had to the people in the neighborhood? Well, how do we actually do that in real life? Like in America, how do we do that? And we've talked about this many times before. The answer is through prices. We set a price on things, and the person who is willing and able to pay for the price gets the item. So prices are a way of allocating resources, and they have a great advantage compared to other systems. So what is the price? It's the monetary value of a product. And prices can act as a signal that helps suppliers and producers make economic decisions. And of course, this is a lot of what you read about in The Undercover Economist. This is basically like the first 2 chapters. Prices are so important because they tell suppliers what they should supply, and they tell they're a way for demanders to express what they want. So what are some of the advantages of prices? What are the good things about prices? Well, first of all, prices are neutral. What does that mean? It means that they don't take sides. They're not biased. A price is just a number. It's just put out there, okay? The car is worth $20,000. And so there's not a favoritism going on. And that might seem crazy to you to even think, why would a price favor? Well, because in countries that had command economies, there was a lot of favoritism. Like, for instance, in the Soviet Union, the only way you got a car is if you knew the right person, you knew somebody in leadership. So prices are neutral. They don't have any kind of favoritism. They're also extremely flexible. They can change quickly. They can change smoothly. Have you ever pulled into a gas station? The price is one price, and then by the time you pulled out, the gas had changed prices? It happens a lot. Prices change very, very quickly, and that's a good thing because they're flexible. All you have to do is change a number, and the market force has worked. They're easily understood. I tell this story every year. When I lived in Russia, my father would purchase food for the orphanage that we lived in the market. And so it was this huge open air market, and my father spoke 0 Russian. I mean, it was like so embarrassing to be around him because he couldn't pronounce any of the words correctly. I mean, it was just awful. And so I would get embarrassed every time I was around him, but he would laugh at me and say, "Carol, you don't understand." He said, "Everybody understands money." And he was right. He could talk to them. He would just straight up talk English, but they could understand each other. They could figure out what they were saying because everybody understands money. It's easy to understand. And then it's just efficient. You don't need an administration. You don't need a bureau of the government to oversee prices. It just happens. So what happens if you don't have prices? It's hard to even imagine a world without prices, but we want to understand the advantages of pricing, so we've got to recognize what it would be like without it. Well, the only other way, basically, if you don't have prices, the only other way of allocating goods is to ration them. This is essentially what you did in the winter storm scenario. You just decided this is who gets the stuff, this is who doesn't, right? Well, we have tried rationing before in our government. The pictures that you see here on the screen are specifically related to the 1970s when there was a big gas shortage and they tried all sorts of different things. If you look up here in this top picture, it says even numbers only. What they mean by that was that on certain days of the week, cars that had a license plate that started with an even number could buy gas, and then the other days were odd numbers. So some states did it that way. Some states down here in the bottom, you see this little ticket that looks like a stamp that was actually a gasoline voucher. It was a way to ration items. But here's the problem with a gasoline voucher or with any kind of rationing. Okay, here's an example. Let's say you have a teenager who has a car, who literally just drives the car because he wants to. He thinks it's cool and it's fun. And then you have a father of 4 kids who drives a car because that's his job. Like, let's say his job is to be a salesman. So he has to drive everywhere. And like driving is his livelihood. Is it fair that the teenager and the guy with 4 kids would get the same number of gas tickets? Well, I don't know. It's perceived fairness, right? Like you could hear an argument there. You could hear the teenager say, well, I'm an adult. I should be able to receive my tickets. And you could hear the older man saying, no, I need more because I have to live off of this. So rationing causes all these problems. Also, to ration stuff, you have to have an organization set up to do it. So it costs money. And then here's the biggest one. This is what you got to focus on. Like, this is the one you need to star and highlight and pay attention to. Distorted incentives. Remember what we said about supply. Do suppliers like high prices or do they like low prices? You should be answering high prices. That's right. They like high prices. So if you do something to try to keep the price low, like maybe you limit the amount that people can buy or you somehow try to keep the price low, will suppliers want to supply it? No, the price is too low. No, it creates a distorted incentive. Now the suppliers don't have an incentive to provide gas because the price is too low. If they would just let the price skyrocket, the sellers would move into the market, would flood the market with the item, and eventually the price would come down. But this is the argument about supply and demand. If you do that, there is a moment of pain. There is a time frame in there where the price is high as you're waiting for suppliers to fill the market. And so government tries to keep that from happening. But in the meantime, it creates distorted incentives. And then, of course, people can steal gas. People can do all sorts of crazy things, lie about their license plates, put on fake license plates so that they can get in with the even numbers. So rationing is just a complicated system. And pricing essentially is easier and more efficient. So how are prices set? When you go into the store and you look at the shampoo and it says $5, why is it $5? Well, here's the key. As long as the process is competitive and the transaction is voluntary, the price will be just about right. We've talked about this before. The price will be right. The seller wouldn't sell it. The buyer wouldn't buy it if it does not benefit them. We're going to assume, we're going to think self-interest. They're acting in their own self-interest. Okay, so on your paper there, You have a little graph, and we're going to do the same thing that we've done before. We're going to graph. Now, this time, you're going to put both supply and demand